Check. Okay. Welcome everybody to Fireside Chats with yours truly, Yami Noob. Today we're talking about myths or misconceptions about track days. As I'm posted up here with two of my bikes that have nothing to do with track days. So before we get started, just so you guys know where I'm coming from for track day stuff, I've done about 30 track days at this point in my career, my life, whatever you want to call it. I currently own a track prepped KTM RC390 that lives at Harris Hill here in Austin, and I also own a track prepped 675R that lives at Eagles Canyon Raceway up in Decatur. Here's some footage of me riding those bikes and looking super cool. Isn't that great? Aren't I super fast? Aren't I super cool? So in posting more about track days on my Instagram, I don't post much about it on YouTube here because, to be honest, those videos just do not get many views. But this kind of video where it's informational and helpful, I think could be cool for you guys to learn about. So the first myth that I hear a lot about, or the things people DM me about, is that, Yami, track days are so expensive. How can you possibly afford to do track days? Track days are so much money, this and that. Money. It's all about track days and money. You know, guys, like, money is a bit of a personal thing. I think what's expensive and what is affordable is really relative, right? Like, Jeff Bezos could go and buy a private jet right now and he probably wouldn't even feel it, whereas I will literally never be able to afford a private jet in my life. So affordability is relative, but I'll tell you this. The amount to which you do track days and the level at which you do it at definitely is variable, right? So you could easily go and get yourself a brand spanking new S1000RR, get yourself a toy hauler, some kick-ass truck to take it with you places, buy a RV to sit with it too, go out and rip, 50 track days a year. And yes, that would be very, very, very expensive. But you could also take your street-worthy daily ride and go to a track day organizer and pay $200 and have a great time on a weekend. So it really depends when it comes to expenses. I think that saying that track days are really expensive does a detriment to people, because if you keep telling people that it costs a ton of money, they might not even look into it and realize that it can be as expensive or as cheap as you make it. It's like any other sport or hobby, you start getting into something and it might trickle in. Maybe you spend $200 every quarter and you kind of see if you like track days, and then slowly maybe you buy a little beater bike so you can take the track, and if you have a crash you won't feel so bad about it, and then maybe you level up and get yourself a membership at a track. So this video isn't to tell you guys how to get into it from a financial perspective. It's just debunking the myth that it has to be expensive, because it doesn't have to be expensive. It's as expensive as you make it. I'm a fancy boy and I like my memberships and I like my 2 separate track bikes and all that, but I've also been at this for a while and I feel like it came over time, right? I didn't wake up one day and suddenly have 2 track prep motorcycles. It took a while to get there. So that's myth number 1. The second one I wanted to talk about is one I hear a lot, is that it's dangerous. You're out there going super fast and you're leaning over and you're carving up a racetrack. How could that not be dangerous, right? But in reality, track days are actually a lot safer than regular street riding, right? I'm about to drop my phone, hold on a sec. It's actually a lot safer than regular street riding, guys. On the track, if you are coming into a corner, if you're leaning over, you're getting it, really getting in there, trying to hit that apex, get your throttle point, exit out. Maybe you gas it a little too much and then just slips out right underneath you. Guess what? Everybody's going the same direction. There's nothing around you. There's plenty of runoff space. Literally the worst that's gonna happen is, your bike might scuff up a little fairings, you might scuff up your suit, and you'll be fine. That's another thing as well. On the track, you have to wear a full leather suit, you have to wear your full face helmet, you have to wear your gauntlet gloves, have to wear your boots. So you're already wearing the best protection possible if you have something happen to you. Now, that's not to say that track days can't be incredibly dangerous. I haven't seen it personally, but I've heard about fatalities happening at regular track days, but that was due to a rider not cinching up his helmet. I've heard of people slamming their ribs and breaking all kinds of ribs, and collarbones especially, very susceptible. Suits don't normally protect in this area. That's usually just a little piece of leather, so if you have an impact right here, you're definitely gonna break a collarbone. That's one of the most common injuries. But overall, like I saw a guy the other day at ECR, I'm pretty sure he came off of his R1 at like 90 miles per hour, didn't have a yard sale, thankfully. His bike was in pretty good pieces, I think, but he came off and he was walking around later in the day, you know, like it's definitely possible to have a pretty big wreck and be okay. Because the thing you have to realize is sliding on a smooth surface is fine. It's really fine. The thing you have to worry about is impact. So if you have like a high side, for example, and you flip off your bike and you land on the ground, you know, a solid 10 feet from the air, you're probably gonna hurt something, right? That's not gonna be fun. If you tumble and if you run into your bike, if you run into someone else, probably not gonna be fun. But overall, track days are way safer than street riding. Way safer. So that's something I'd like to debunk. This is one I get a lot, and I see a lot of DMs from this on my Instagram. It's my bike isn't good enough for the track, Yami. I can't take my VFR, or I can't take my street triple on the track. It's not a proper super sport. It's not a track motorcycle. I can't possibly take that out there. Guys, you can take whatever you want on the track as long as the tires are in decent condition, as long as it's not leaking any fluids, and it can pass your regular tech inspection for your track days. You will probably be able to ride it. Now, the amount of fun and how appropriate it is in that given environment is going to be up to you. I saw a guy the other day at Eagles Canyon with a KLR 650, so anything is possible. But I've seen adventure bikes on track, I've seen naked bikes on track, I've seen cruisers on track, seriously. I know some guys take their Diablos on track, for example. It really depends on the track too. You know, if you've got a real small kind of tight track, something like the Desert Sled or a Supermoto or a WR250, a more kind of upright motorcycle might be even more fun than an actual sport bike. So the idea that your bike isn't good enough for a track day, I think doesn't make a lot of sense. If you're willing to go out with the bike you have, it's good enough. I would wager to say, if you have a bike that currently passed a normal inspection in, you know, all 50 states, or definitely international, their regulations are even more strict than ours, but if you have a roadworthy motorcycle, you can probably take it to a track and have some fun. You don't need super slick tires. You don't need full fairings. You don't need, you know, a bike that revs to 16,000 RPM. You can have fun with anything out there on the track, and a lot of people do. So take your bike, have some fun with it. That leads me to my next point though. Another myth that I see pretty often is, oh, Yami, I'm starting to pick up my pace. I'm getting pretty quick on the track. I'm feeling good. I think I want to get some slicks so that I start riding real fast and keeping up with the fast boys. To be honest, slicks are really cool. They get you tons of grip. They slide out in a really predictable fashion. They are very appropriate for that environment. However, they do come with a lot of disadvantages. Slicks, unfortunately, they require a lot of heat to build up to actually get that grip. So if you're on slicks and you're not using tire warmers, you will probably have a bad time on your first 2 or maybe even 3 laps out on the track if it's not warm enough to really build up some heat in that tire. Because that's how slicks work. They have an operating temperature that's a bit higher than street tires because they're designed to be at the racetrack. Personally, for me, I've done a lot of research about slicks and about street tires. I run on my Daytona the Dunlop Q4s. I think they're a great option. It's basically a semi-slick tire, but it has the capabilities of a street tire, and then it warms up quickly. So my bike doesn't need to sit on tire warmers. I go out there, do one quick warm-up lap, and they are good to go. So I've also seen that with riding on track, it's so much less about the equipment and the mods and the timers and all this other stuff, and about the rider, you know? So right now at Eagles Canyon, I'm running about a 2:15.5. That's about my PR right there at Eagles Canyon Raceway, which is about 3 seconds off from the top instructor's time there, and about 5 seconds off from a true, like, ultra fast boy time. So I've got some work to do, and I'm still getting up to that kind of expert level, you know, super fast pace. But you know, a guy the other day, his name is Josh. If you watch my video, Josh, please leave a comment below and tell me what you're doing. But he was on basically a bone stock R6 with some Q3s, and he just blew my doors off. He must have easily been running a 211 or a 210 pace, because I didn't see him after 2 or 3 corners, you know? And that's a worse tire than my Q4s, which is objectively a worse tire than slicks. So you could easily, with enough skill and enough know-how and enough riding abilities, you could way outride anybody with slicks if you are able to. Now, again, there's pros and cons to it, right? If you're on slicks, they're more forgiving, they'll have more grip, but I think slicks are best reserved for true race applications in which you need the tire to be up to temperature immediately, right out of the gate, right? You would not want to run a race on Q3s because that first lap is essential, right? You want to make sure you get the whole shot, you get there first, you pass as many people as you can in the first or second corners. But with slicks, you immediately, when you're off the gate, tires are warm, boom, you go. For a track day, when you're practicing, when you're having fun with your bike, I don't really see the benefit of it, but that's just my opinion. So moving on. This is a fun one. It's kind of controversial too. I've seen a lot of guys, you know, they do their first, maybe second track day, and they're like, yeah, I got my knee down. I'm feeling really fast, and I got my knee down. It's so cool. You know, I really feel like I'm really understanding what I'm doing. And I would caution you when it comes to the knee down type of stuff, because when you think about it, the fundamental skills of riding a motorcycle on the track at a smooth, consistent, and fast pace is throttle. It's throttle and understanding your lines. You could, with a completely standard and upright riding position, with enough understanding about your throttle and enough understanding about the lines you're taking, you could run laps around some of these dudes who are dragging their knees. And why is that? Because fundamentally, understanding when to crack open the throttle and when to turn in is how you get faster and how you pick up pace. Body position is cool. It really helps when you start really amping up the pace, because what happens is when you're at full lean, if you can lean off more and get the bike upright, you can now carry more speed and you can pick it up as you come off the corner, right? But to be honest, a lot of guys come into track days on first day, second day, and they're just trying to think about how to look cool for the photos, right? Don't get me wrong, that's great. I love looking cool for photos, right? If someone's out there on the track, I'm probably going to exaggerate my body position a little bit when I see the photographer, because I want to look cool, right? I want to share my pictures on the internet and look cool. But currently today, at the 2:15 pace that I run at Eagles Canyon, it is faster, obviously, and smoother than any pace that I've done before, but also I'm dragging knee so much less than what I used to running a 220 or a 224 that I used to run, right? So how is that possible? Well, the thing is, I wasn't fundamentally focused on throttle and turn in, right? When you're only focused on trying to look cool and hang off your bike, you're not really getting the full picture there. So dragging a knee is super cool, and whoever's out there doing their first or second day and they've dragged a knee, it feels awesome. And that's really, for me, like one of the things that addicted me to track days is that feeling of like, yeah, I'm out there, you know, got my knee down, and I'm, you know, really getting it on the bike. But you know, I've run laps around guys who are almost elbow down, and you know, you just kind of go around them, you're like, all right, thanks, bye, and you just keep going because you're carrying way more speed. So knee down is super cool, but it's only cool if you can also have the lap times to back it up, in my opinion. Moving on. So the last point here, and this is one that I've gotten quite a bit from, I'd say, intermediate level riders, guys who are maybe have done 5 or 6 track days, and there's some merit to it. It's the idea that, okay, Yami, I'm picking up my pace, I'm shaving off my lap times, I'm really getting there. I think now is the time for me to upgrade to a big fancy leader bike with electronics that, you know, are going to help me really start pushing and carving up my lap times. And there's some validity to that idea, right? Like, for example, like an auto blip downshifter, when you're coming into a corner and you're braking, if you don't have to worry about rev matching or clutching in or making sure that's all nice and smooth, if you have the knowledge and if you are able to exploit that system, you will go faster, right? But just because you have that system doesn't mean you're necessarily going to go faster. Do you see what I'm saying? Just because you have traction control and wheelie control and auto blippers, those are tools that if you are riding at a pace where you start noticing that those could help you, right? Like, I'm getting close to that point where I'm noticing my braking and I'm like, man, if I had an auto blipper, I know I could trail it in harder here. I know I could bite harder at the braking zone because I wouldn't have to worry about rev matching and downshifting as much as I like doing it. If I wanted to go super fast, then that's what I would do. It's kind of similar to like a dual clutch transmission in a car, right? Like, if you don't have to worry about your shifts, you probably will go faster. But if you don't know how to drive, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing with all the bike technologies. And I would really caution you to think that a faster bike is going to make you faster, right? Like for example, in the last 2 months, and literally just in the last weekend, I've shaved off 9.5 seconds off of my PR at Eagles Canyon Raceway. How did I do that? Same bike, same tires. All I've done is just seat time, seat time, seat time. I didn't buy a new bike. I didn't do anything else. I just sat in, did classes at California Superbike School. I've been watching different videos of people doing their techniques. I've been watching my own track day footage and really understanding it. I've just put in the time, you know? And that made me get on the bike and go 9 seconds faster. If I had done, you know, if I had gone out and bought an R1 because it had all the fancy electronics and all that, I probably would have gone exactly as fast as I did with the Daytona because I didn't have the fundamental understanding of how to carry that speed and really crack the throttle and do everything correctly. So if you are in that mindset right now, or you're like, I gotta get a better bike to go faster, you probably are just not riding your current bike fast enough. And I would recommend, instead of spending all the money on a new bike and doing all that, spend the money on some class days, spend the money on instructions, spend the money on more tires and seat time, because that will make you much faster than getting another bike. So that's gonna wrap up my video on track day myths dispelled. What do you guys think? Leave me a comment below if you have any other questions about track days. I'm trying to do my best to introduce as many people as I can to the wonderful world of riding fast on a track, because it is a lot of fun and nothing feels as good as really understanding a motorcycle and how to really push it at its limit. It makes you a better street rider too. It makes you cool off on the street, makes you, you know, really just awesome. So track days are great. Why wouldn't you want to ride on the track? It's great. So hopefully this video helped. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. I will try to answer as many as I can, probably in the first hour or two of this video going live. Beyond that, it's going to be a little bit harder for me to jump back in and talk about stuff, but I will try as much as I can. So thanks for watching. Catch you next time. See you later.